Hey there, my name is E.W. Buckley and welcome back to my YouTube channel. The French horn is a beautiful instrument. There's a reason why it is used so prominently in film scores and orchestral music. I mean, just listen to it. Okay, just kidding. That is not a French horn. It's bees. Well, specifically, it's bees that have been turned into a wavetable, loaded into Ableton's Wavetable synthesizer that have then been processed to sound like a French horn. This is an instrument that I created and used in my new single, Hiveminded. It takes advantage of one of the coolest features of Ableton Live's wavetable, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. But real quick, before we jump in, if you are interested in creative artistry in music production and Ableton Live, then consider subscribing to this channel. I'm big on not only the how, but the why behind music production. And if you are too, then this is the place for you. I hope that you stick around. Okay, let's jump in. So the oscillators on wavetable synthesizers use something called a wavetable. And a wavetable is essentially just a digital audio file that contains multiple short single cycle waveforms all arranged together. I have Ableton's stock wavetable device here, and we can see that this wavetable contains our four basic wave shapes of a sine wave, triangle, saw, and square. And so if I just hold down a C and I sweep through the waveforms, we're going to hear it shift in between from sine to triangle to saw to square. And there are many advanced different shapes. In Wavetable alone, there are so many different categories and then various shapes within those categories. Fifth brutal, for example. And we can hear the timbre of the sound change as the position of the wavetable changes. One of the cool things about Ableton's wavetable synthesizer is that you can just drop whatever the hell audio file you want into the oscillator and it will treat it as a wavetable. It's a weird other secret sampler and you can do some really cool things with it. In the case of the B French horn, I dropped a small segment of each beehive recording into each oscillator. When you drop a sample into Wavetable, Wavetable will automatically process it to remove any unwanted artifacting, but you can click this raw toggle to just have the sample as it was, unaltered. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Like any wavetable, the magic comes in from how you modulate the position of the wavetable. If we expand this B French horn, we see that I am doing a whole ton of that with various controls of the oscillators and the filters, all of which are being controlled by the various envelopes and LFOs within Wavetable. And if I just play a few notes, we're going to see a lot of that modulation in action. This process is a lot of trial and experimentation, so instead let's step back and start to build something a bit more ground up. Okay, so I have here an instance of Wavetable in which I've dropped one measure of the Amen break into oscillator 2 here. At its default position, if I play a note, I'll play a low G, it sounds like this. We're getting a small portion of that cymbal and kick that's on the downbeat looping, and it's giving us that very bright sound. But to illustrate how cool it is to modulate the position of wavetables, I'm going to modulate the position of oscillator 2 entirely with envelope 2. And if I hold that low G again, it now sounds like this. We get our drums and we get our bass. We have that low note and we have the Amen break. And the cool thing is that because the speed of the changing wavetable position is controlled entirely by the attack of envelope 2, no matter what note I play, it is going to sweep through the position of the wavetable at that same speed. How's that for drum and bass? I just want to mention really quick that if some of the concepts I'm covering in this video, like envelopes, LFOs, and routing, feels really overwhelming to you, then you should check out my course, Beginner Synthesis in Ableton Live. It doesn't shy away on building your understanding of synthesis, but it never becomes too technical that it isn't accessible. If you're the person that I am describing and you're ready to learn synthesis and to really understand sound design at a fundamental level, then consider checking it out. Okay. Back to it. Now let's build something entirely from scratch. I have this bass drone sample here. I'm going to drop that into this instance of Wavetable, and let's look at using an LFO to modulate the position of this sample. I'm going to set the position to 50%, and let's go ahead then and expand the device so we can see everything all at once. I'm going to route the oscillator position to be controlled by LFO, and I'm going to set the amount to 35. Over on the LFO, I'm going to set the rate to 0.05, and I'm going to set the shape to -50. So we have this sort of triangle thing going on. I'm also going to set the unison to shimmer so we have some nice stereo width. So I'll play a chord now, and we're going to hear what it sounds like by default with the smoothing applied to the wavetable. And as we can hear, it's really smooth. There's not a whole ton of movement. But in the case of this sample, I actually think the raw is more compelling. We can hear that as it sweeps between the wavetables, it's not nearly as smooth, and that draws attention to each individual wave in the table more, but I like that. I think that's really compelling in this instance. The sample is also great for warping and folding the waveform, which brings out a whole host of different harmonics. Using longer samples like a drone for this kind of application, I find is great for modulating via LFO, and we could continue to further modulate those controls by LFOs as well. But we already have a really rich and interesting sound starting just from one sample we've dropped into one oscillator. We could still use oscillator 2 and the sub-oscillator, and we are barely using any of the modulation features here. There's a lot to explore. So let's create something with multiple samples. I'm going to start with another fresh instance of Wavetable, and I'm going to load this cello impact sample into the first oscillator. And again, let's expand Wavetable so that we see the whole device. I'm going to route the position of oscillator 1 to be controlled entirely by envelope 2. And I'm going to set envelope 2 to trigger, so that way it just needs the note on MIDI message to go through the whole envelope's life cycle. I'll set envelope 2 to have an attack of about 1 minute and 30 seconds, and we'll set the unison control to noise. And already this is a pretty usable bass sound. But I have this upright piano sample here of just the note C3, and we're going to layer that into the second oscillator and create a really distant, resonant, reverb-like effect with it. So for now, let's actually turn off oscillator 1 and engage oscillator 2. I'm going to route the position of oscillator 2 to also be controlled by envelope 2 as well. And I'm going to route its gain to be controlled by envelope 3. Jumping to envelope 3, we're going to set it also to trigger. I'm going to bring the sustain to 0. I'm going to set the attack to 700 milliseconds so that it sweeps in after the impact of the cello, but set the decay to 2 whole seconds so that it hangs out for a while. That sounds like this. It's pretty ghostly and it just hangs out in the background, but that's what we want. Let's re-engage the cello. It's almost reverb-like. Now to glue it all together, we're going to add the sub-oscillator set to the 0 octave, and I'm going to switch our filter to MS2 and add about 6 decibels of drive. And that sounds like this. And we've got ourselves a really cool bass here. As you can see, the ability to drop literally any sample into Wavetable dramatically expands what's possible with the device. I use this technique a few different ways on my new single Hiveminded, which you can pick up on my Bandcamp page or stream wherever you'd like. Thank you so much for watching, and please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. I'm working hard to get this channel to 15,000 subscribers by the end of 2025, and it's your support entirely that makes that possible. Till next time.